Hey, welcome back to Stories of Dave. So I guess we're going to call this Tribute Week, yeah? Tributes, homages, nods. This is kind of a tribute I wrote to Ray Bradbury, and it's based on the summer that Space Invaders came to town back in 1978. So it comes from personal memories, but you know how that goes. Uh, the pigments we use from memory are usually rich and deep and wonderful and always a little rosy. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this one. I had this one was scheduled to be published this year, and it got published really by mistake. I got an email from the publisher saying, nobody. It was basically a form email asking nobody to submit anything more, and in response, I sent an upgrade I had made to this story because I was much happier with it. And I said, hey, thanks for the word. By the way, for what it's worth, I wanted you to have this if you're making a final pass at stuff. Oh, I love it. I really want to run this. So when it finally ran, you wait 9 months for the effing thing to come out. And then you go to read it, and it's the original one, man. It's the one you didn't want in. And um, then you have to deal with feeling like you are you're the super sensitive, picky artist. And you're not. You sent the replacement in 9 effing months ago. So I told her, you know what? Kill the piece. And that's it. I won't be submitting to print media anymore ever again. Print Epic is dead. It's gone. That said, may it rest in peace. This one is for you all. This is probably the only place it'll ever be published. So if we have a power outage in the middle, what can I say? So let me get it squared up here so I can at least scroll correctly. This is the Invasion Summer. Thanks for joining me. Stories of Dave. The Invasion Summer. Stan, the manager, emerged from the snack bar to buff the chrome and wipe the glass on the pinball machines that stood back to back in a column down the middle of the teen center pavilion. They looked brand new after he wiped them clean and chipped the dried gum off the sides and sprayed and wiped down all the glass from the play fields and the back box displays. Once he finished cleaning the machines, he plugged each of them into the power strips fixed to the pavilion posts. One by one, the machines blinked awake and knocked with a chime. One by one, the machines blinked awake with a knock and a chime. They hummed electronic theme songs to themselves, their iconic displays flashing coded power-on self-test routines like hand-painted movie billboards sprung miraculously to life. And it was glorious. In the afternoon, please excuse my speech impediment. In the afternoons, when the teen center was in full swing, the machines made a beautiful music all their own, a lush, accidental composition of random chimes, bells, and electronic melodies. To Stan, they were instruments in an orchestra playing a symphony for a celestial carnival parade, one that relied on a near constant cascade of quarters dropping into the slots of the coin box panels on the front of the machines. It was the same symphony every day, but with slightly different arrangements and subtle variations. To really hear it properly, Stan thought, every single game had to be in play at once. It was his favorite sound in the world, and his love for it had nothing to do with the money it made him. The money simply enabled Stan to sustain the arcade, but the music was the payoff. Stan raised the corrugated aluminum gate over the order window, and he unlocked the register and flipped the little close sign to say open. Then he came back out to the pavilion and put a quarter in the spirit of 76. He pressed a button, and with a knock somewhere deep inside it, a hidden works in the machine fed a big silver ball into the chamber above the waiting plunger. The entire universe held its breath, as if all its potential kinetic energy now lay gathered up in that little chrome sphere, just awaiting expression. Even the cicadas and the frogs along the edges of the lake below the teen center had gone quiet. Stan pulled the plunger handle back gently, but not all the way. He trusted his fingertips to know the exact amount of pull it would take to trap the ball in the chaos. among the targets and the bumpers at the top. Then Stan closed his eyes and let go, and he listened. Now his world was reduced to physics, to angelic forces tracing elegant vectors defining actions and equal opposite reactions. What is the shortest distance among a million points? A pinball machine. Stan felt 13 again. Ding, 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 pop, bling, pop. Bling, 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 ding. He followed the ball's progress back and forth across the playboard, anticipating its final descent toward the drain, then flipped it back up into a fresh chaos of chiming lights and blinking bells. That was Stan's favorite moment, when the ball got trapped at the top and took a cacophonous life of its own, with the momentum transcending his own connection with it, one resulting in a furious but elegant synergy of angles, planes, ricochets, and friction, with nothing but utter chaos driving the score number higher, 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 getting lost in what was the chaos Stan ever got to having, getting lost in what was the closest Stan ever got to having a mystical experience. And he tried to do it at least once each day. When the truck arrived with the brand new machine, the liveryman from Nashville wheeled the big vertical crate up the sidewalk of the teen center pavilion on a dolly. The man Stan assumed as the leader raised his eyebrows in an open question mark, to which Stan replied, "Y'all can put it right over there. This in here's the one I'll be trading out." The men nodded and finished wheeling the crate to its final destination. Then the older man unplugged the Spirit of 76 from the power strip, and the two men carefully lifted and carried the machine down to the truck, where they loaded it with Stan's help, lashing its bulk straps against the front of the van, then blocking the legs so it wouldn't shift during transport. "Where do you instake these old ones anyhow?" Stan said, giving the display glass one last quick ceremonial wipe with his open palm before they covered it with a padded sheet. "Warehouse," said the man. Stan assumed he was the leader. He was the elder of the two. He wore a full mustache and a beard under a soft-brimmed hat, and he chewed a long sprig of wheat straw that bobbed and spun in his mouth when he spoke. His companion was a younger man wearing overalls with no shirt on underneath. He wore a bowl haircut and had eyes that were sunken and set too far apart. He seemed hostage some way to the man who did all the talking. Together, they made the impression of having just arrived from another century. "Then what?" Stan said. "Well, people buy 'em," the man said. "Collectors mostly." Stan nodded. "Y'all sell 'em direct from the warehouse?" he said. "We sure do, yep." "I agonized about which ones of these to turn loose of," Stan said. "Can't just add one. Don't got the power for it. And these new ones, man." "He's power hungry," said the man, nodding. "No getting around it." "I had to make a decision, much as I hated to." "That's a tough decision to make. Some fine machines here." "Don't I know it?" "Do better than anything else I got going, if you can believe that. My pinball numbers are twice as high as my putt-putt numbers, especially on the weekends. I don't make nothing on snacks, hardly." "I reckon that sounds about right," the man said, nodding. "I'm partial to this here Spirit of 76 machine, though," Stan said, lower, almost to himself. "That was a good summer. I like them older ones better, you know it? A lot of these newer models are bringing on way too much electronics. Give me a old bell and chime number any day. One that'll shake the floor when the bumpers pop. It had to be this in her pop a card, I reckon. You say they's for sale, though, huh?" The man nodded. "Everything we got's for sale. But we'll run out of 'em if we can. But we'll rent 'em out if we can." The delivery man uncrated the new machine and scooched it back to its new home, tilting it gently to remove the pallet, and then Stan plugged the cord into the power strip. They all stood back and waited, scratching at their arms and necks to keep their hands from getting idle. After a long moment, it sprang to life with a chirp and a beep, its display alive with digital magic. The men stood around it at a distance, watching it quietly, as if it might just explode. "This is my first one of these," the delivery man said. His counterpart nodded. "Sure is," he said. "Mine too," Stan said. "Boy, howdy, just look at it. Space invaders." Their eyes gaped in wonder. By now, the summer kids began to gather, some of them locals, still others deposited quietly by parents bound for rounds of golf or obligatory timeshare pitches at the resort office. They crowded in quietly behind the men, motionless as fawns in a spotlight, their eyes likewise agape in wonder. "It don't take up nearly half the room," the delivery man said. "Everything's inside. There's a computer in there making it all work." "You don't say," Stan said. "Daggum," said the assistant, now wide-eyed with awe in a way that only accentuated the distance between his eyes. The machine seemed too compact for its surroundings and too small to do anything exciting. It stood out like an interloper among the pinball machines. Once it warmed up, it showed a display screen listing the point values of various Space Invaders. A dead center prompt said, "Press play to start." "Surely that ain't all it does," Stan said, staring at the menu screen. "It looks like a broken TV." The men all leaned forward slightly, staring into the screen. The kids leaned forward alongside them, equally underwhelmed. Just then, a local teenager wearing bell-bottom jeans and a Led Zeppelin t-shirt stepped forward. He wore his hair long, and he kept his eyes hidden behind his hair where it parted in the middle. "They got one of these at the movie theater down in Cookville," he said. He eased his hands into place over the buttons, testing their action with his fingers, the others all watching in rapt silence. Then he rolled a quarter into the slot, and he pressed the big red start button. "Got high score on my very first play. See right here?" he said, touching the screen near the top where it said high score. "That's where you look for the score you got to beat." The kid's name was Toto. His mom was a housekeeper at the resort. Every summer since he was 13, he'd skimmed quarters from the pinball machines for pot money using a stolen master key liberated from the pond in front of the lodge, where it got tossed infamously one distant previous summer by his cousin Lyle during his arrest for truancy. Toto held forth every day from the top of the picnic table overlooking the pond and the putt-putt course. Spread across the table where he sat lay an intricately carved rendition of a 7-pointed sativa leaf surrounded by the carved initials of a dozen summers worth of teen center kids. Stan suspected Toto carved that pot leaf into the picnic table. He suspected him of skimming the machines, too, but he never caught him in the act. A long line formed behind Toto that morning, and there was no longer any room left for extra quarters on the bezel. From that play forward and for the rest of the day, a permanent line stretched back from Space Invaders, 6 kids long. At first, those unwilling to wait their turn simply drifted off to play putt-putt or one of the old pinball machines. But as each one had his or first experience with the relentless invaders from space, those old games suddenly and irrevocably lost all their charm. The gracefully arcing roll of the big steel bearing, the knock and ring of the holes in the target bumpers, the bonus alarms, the flashing lights and chimes, the cartoon art. Nowhere in that old symphony of pinball machines was there any instrument magical enough to compete with the slow, steady stress of the inevitable downward goose-step heartbeat of aliens making their irresistible descent. Thump-bump, 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 thump-bump. Gradually at first, and then all at once, the Space Invaders had arrived. No one could ever look away again who had so much as glanced into the luminescent medusa of wriggling pixels. The invaders from space had come to conquer, and they were taking no prisoners. Almost overnight, the pinball machines were abandoned. They stood back to back in a long, shiny column down the middle of the teen center pavilion. For the rest of that summer, mute now but still wide awake, humming with electric potential, just waiting. They stood like early monuments to a human season whose passage no one even seemed to notice. Almost no one. Stan played the pinball machines. He started with a different one each morning. Abracadabra or Papa Card or Matahari or Jet Spin or Meteor or Beat Time or Eye of the Tiger or the brand new Kiss game, working his way around the game pavilion counterclockwise, playing as many games as he could before the kids arrived each day. If the teen center was quiet enough and if he could get himself in the right frame of mind, he found he could use the sound of certain games to seed memories, and that he could almost hear the sound of the games all being played simultaneously again. The way it sounded so many afternoons on so many golden summer days, all of which now seemed so very long ago. He wanted more than anything in his life to hear that sound again, just one more time. That wonderful cacophonous symphony of chimes and buzzers and bells. Now that it was gone forever, it seemed vital that he do so for some reason. Perhaps to reassure himself that the beauty he felt in the middle of the chaos had been real. But for the rest of that day and for the rest of that summer, the machines remained silent, waiting, humming with unused current beneath the ever-insistent anxiety of the invaders. Thump-bump, thump-bump, thump-bump. In the evenings when Stan counted his dwindling returns and closed up shop each day, he did so with a mildly resentful awareness of the diminishing angle of the setting sun. Unspoken by anyone, but unavoidable in the crickety late summer din of twilight falling all around him, was the simple truth he knew in his heart, but had not yet fully accepted. Not fully. Stan locked the snack bar, tested the lock. He stood at the top of the column of pinball machines for a moment in the last rays of sunset, just staring out across them as if he were lost in deep thought. His hand felt around in his pocket for the quarter he'd felt jingling against his keys, and he dropped it into the beat time machine. Stan felt the machine come alive between his hands where they rested at its corners. Somewhere close but deep within the works, he heard the sound of a single knock, and the big silver ball appeared, waiting. He stood with his hands resting gently at the sides of the machine with his fingers poised over the flipper buttons. Then he pulled back the plunger, but not all the way, and when his fingers knew they had pulled it back, just enough to trap the ball at the top of the playing field among the bumpers and high-value targets, Stan, the teen center manager, closed his eyes and let go, and he listened. The end. Thanks for joining me for Stories with Dave, and we'll see you next time.